It has been a ridiculous election year. At this point, I'm embarrassed by my country for how atrocious its primary presidential candidates are. Party nominees emerge as a combination of what a party can produce and or what its voting base can support. The Republican side can produce nothing better than Donald Trump, and the Democrat side can produce nothing better than Hillary Clinton. Those are my two choices. Our country, from its politicians to its voting base, should all be ashamed at how terrible we look to the rest of the world for saying those two are the best among us. We want one of them to be the face of our nation. I truly hope it's a massive wake-up call, and in 2020 we do a 180 in that regard. During the primary election, I was firmly in support of Bernie Sanders, and the more I learned about Hillary Clinton's political behavior, the less I liked her. However, I wasn't in the Bernie or bust category. In fact, there's ample footage of me from the Therefore God podcast arguing that if Bernie Sanders lost the election, the best choice would be to hold our nose and vote for Hillary, primarily because of the Supreme Court justice appointments, which are all but certain to come along in the next 4 years. I insisted that it was best to think about the bigger picture and look past the deplorable person and rubbish choice that Hillary seemed to be on her own merit, just on the basis of her not being Donald Trump. I've since considered that to actually be short-sighted of me, but more on that later. It wasn't until the last month or so of the primaries that I began seriously doubting my ability to vote for Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't just because she's not Bernie Sanders. It wasn't anything that Bernie's campaign or the Republicans said about her that pushed me over the edge. It was Hillary Clinton who convinced me not to vote for her. Despite her recent concessions to Sanders, the most important federal issue to me is getting money out of politics, and she's proven to be the manifestation of that problem rather than the solution. Her attitude throughout the entire primary was one of crass entitlement. She condescended to the existence of someone even bothering to run against her in her party, or members of her party voting for someone that wasn't her, and worst of all, she expected everyone to vote for her, even if they still disagree with her policies. Her attitude just screamed to me, you know that you and everyone else are going to vote for me no matter what, because I've been anointed to the nominee of this position for years now, and you're all scared of Trump, so just shut up and accept it. For a while, I was considering not voting at all, as I was too repulsed by these two choices, and I'd like to remind everyone watching and listening that as of now, I haven't voted yet. I'm not making this video to convince anyone to vote my way. I'm making it because if posting a video to YouTube is useful for anything, it's getting people to tell you how wrong you are about any damn thing you say. So I'm open to be convinced as to who should get my vote and why. But right now, I'm sincerely considering voting for a third-party candidate, and I'd like to give a few basic reasons as to why. For starters, my one vote is fairly insignificant when cast into the broken national electoral system. I mean, one vote goes towards a suggestion for what someone should do with multiple electoral votes, but he's just going to give all of them to one person anyway. If my state has 20 electoral votes and 51% of the state votes for Trump, Trump's getting all 20 of our electoral votes, even if the other 49% of the state voted for Gary Johnson or Jill Stein. That is inherently and obviously a flawed system, an antiquated one at that. So even if I'm just voting on the principle for a candidate who doesn't seem to stand a chance, it's not like it makes much of a difference. But at least I could actually vote for the person that I believe should be president. Isn't that kind of the point of a vote? Some argue, well, that's fine if it's just you, but if a significant number of people voted like that, then it will steal votes away from Hillary and it will hand the election over to Trump. Well, by that logic, if a significant enough number of people vote that way, then my third-party candidate could just win the election. And people treat third-party candidates as if they're a threat because a lot of people might vote for them, because they don't think that number will be big enough to actually win, so they discourage it entirely, even if they too hate the two-party system. And that leads to my next reason. Most Americans that I ask are hungry for more and better choices at the presidential polls. They want to have a better choice than the lesser of two evils. Our two-party winner-take-all system allows there to be nothing better than two evils, and it allows our presidential candidates to focus on appealing to a small number of swing voters in a small number of swing states, while they pretty much know that the red states are going to vote for Republican no matter what, and the blue states are going to vote for the Democrat no matter what. We should not tolerate that. And as long as we allow it to be a one or the other, we bring ourselves to have to tolerate that. That wouldn't be so bad if both of the choices were really excellent choices, viable candidates, but how often does that happen? How often do we get to say, oh man, I could really vote for this Republican candidate or this Democratic candidate? They both seem like really good choices. Instead of struggling to choose between the lesser of two evils, wouldn't you rather struggle between several candidates that you think are all worthy of a place in the White House, but they all have unique strengths, rather than choosing who has the least or smallest flaws? Polls show that about half the people voting for or planning to vote for Clinton are doing so not because they like her, but because they hate Trump, while about half the people who plan on voting for him are doing so not because they like him, but because they hate her. Here's an idea. How about all of those people on both sides vote for someone that they actually want as president and see what happens? To be clear, I have no delusions of Jill Stein or Gary Johnson winning the presidential election this year, though considering what a crazy year it's been, who knows? However, the people who insist that I think about the long-term implications of throwing my vote away for a third-party candidate, remember, I made that same argument just a few months ago, I say that I am. I say that at some point, if we ever want to purge ourselves of this corrupt, broken two-party system, then we have to have the courage to stop being subservient to it. Maybe this year the Green Party or the Libertarians get 15 or 20% of the vote. Not nearly enough to win, but still a large percentage. And if those voters had voted for the losing candidate, they probably would have been enough to push him or her over to victory. But in the long term, people who were considering voting third party but were too scared to may say, wow, there were a lot of people who actually did that. I'm going to consider an option for myself next time. And more importantly, it's a wake-up call to the established parties that competition exists, and they have to do better if they want that 15 to 20% in the election next time. I am thinking long-term, and I think those saying, hurry up, you have to give your vote to Hillary or the scary Trump monster will win, are the ones thinking short-term. This brings me to my last point. I am not scared of Donald Trump. I do not take him seriously as a presidential candidate at this point. I currently doubt he takes himself seriously as a candidate. If he does win the presidency, assuming he accepts, I think being grossly incompetent and unqualified gets him impeached in the first year or so. Maybe that will be the wake-up call America needs as to being as mentally numb as we were to nominate, let alone elect someone like Trump in the first place. I'm not buying it, and I'm not currently prepared to let my fear of what appears to be a comically horrible candidate send me running into the arms of a standard horrible candidate. Not when there are better candidates with stronger platforms who are technically in the race, even if they aren't as popular. So go ahead, Internet. Convince me of where I should put my vote. Tell me why I'm right or wrong. You're good at doing that.